Good morning and welcome back to Youth Wednesdays on Tobago Updates Morning Show. You're viewing us here live in Portmore, Scarborough, Tobago. My name is Dwayne, and this morning we're going to continue the discussion with Miss Allison Matulli, who is here to share a lot about human rights as it relates to children, and all about what she have accomplished over these years as a black woman living in the United States. And joining me this morning as well is Miss Kayleigh Lewis. She's back from a hiatus. I wouldn't say a hiatus, but she went to come back, and it's always a pleasure to have you here with me, Miss Lewis.
Thank you so much, Dwayne, and thank you, viewers, for staying with us. So, as Dwayne said, we're still chatting with
Yes.
Miss Allison Matulli. So, Miss Allison, tell us a little bit about what your journey was like so far. As Dwayne said, you're a black woman living in the United States, achieving so much. What has that been like?
Well, as part of it's been like a dream, right? I think I was taught to definitely reach high and to not just reach high, but to lift as I rise. So, as I would say, first and foremost, yes, I'm many things. I'm a lawyer, I'm a writer, but I'm also an educator. And I'm a mother. So sometimes I feel like I'm mothering my college students. For example, we have finals that were yesterday. But I think it's really important if you can make sure that no one falls. If you have the power to make sure that we all rise together, there's space for all of us. So as a black woman, I'm very conscious of that. And I think that we have to make sure that we continue to engage our students in a way that we are constantly sometimes filling the gap of things that they may not know. You may assume that they know, when they get on a college campus, how to do all the things or seek help if they need tutoring and things like that, just the basics. But they may not know that those resources are there because they might come from communities where it's the first time coming to college and it's the first time being away from home. So I'm very conscious about those things.
All right. So you teach, you have this program with little lawyers, essentially, as you mentioned before in the first segment, teaching young children about their rights. I mean, it's called you also have a book called the First Amendment, if I'm not correct?
Well, the book is called Your Freedom, Your Power.
Right.
It's a kid's guide to the First Amendment. Yes.
Right. So we don't necessarily have a First Amendment, but we do have rights in our Constitution as for children. But there would be parallels, in the United States versus here. What can you do? What advice would you give to our local parents in terms of just little steps as to how you could help protect your children's rights from a very young age?
Yes. The one thing I take with me, and I tell even my students, I say, in reality, when you take a class, when you do a course, whatever you do academically, you will take a small slice of what you've learned in that classroom. I'm sure we can all attest to that. But I tell my students to take language with you. Because when you walk into a job interview, when you walk into a discussion, when you walk into a possibility of something else, perhaps even you need an internship or what have you, you want to have the language that is associated with a certain level of learning. So what I tell parents, and that's what we pretty much did with the little lawyers, was to break legal language into a very colorful group of characters that's very approachable, very attainable. So start small, and when you go to an event with students or you're with your child, have conversations with them. Find out how their point of view is on certain things. You're sitting down. I hear a lot of political talk since I've landed in Trinidad and Tobago, naturally so. But I don't necessarily see kids being engaged in those conversations. So they're hearing that kind of like a spill off. But in order for them to exercise their right to vote, you want to vote at home for what you're having for dinner. Start that process early because there are little ways you can make language very accessible and very normal for students and kids.
All right, that's
Okay,
good.
that's very interesting that you mentioned that in terms of being able to vote for what you want to have home at dinner because here in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, that's not something that we really used to being able to say, well, okay, you want whatever mommy cooks, you eat it or you sit beside it. That's a saying, that's something that we're used to. So what is it that drew you to focus specifically on empowering young persons or children through legal education? Because your book is Your Freedom, Your Power, Kids Guide to the First Amendment. What drew you to focus specifically on that?
I think it's because I grew up in a situation that speaks to needing to learn my rights. And it comes from my own roots. It comes from knowing how important those rights are now that I have achieved all of these things. But also wanting to make law accessible and normal for all of us, because I really think law is a great equalizer.
It is.
Those who know their rights use them really well, sometimes to prevent others from using theirs because of pure lack of knowledge. So it's very easy to not advocate, not self-advocate for what you believe in, to be silent and to have that silent tongue. If you really are afraid of legal consequences, if you don't know you have the right to speak up.
Yeah, and one thing that we do admire, well, for me, living in the Caribbean, is admiring how liberal we see that United States citizens are so liberal, and it comes with a sense of knowledge, right? Do you think, how would you use your platform, to encourage, well, or do collaborative? Because you did mention that you're interested in doing collaboration that in the country, but what are some of the steps that you would take to ensure that the law is so palatable for our young persons, that they become more adept, more acquainted with their rights, and what mechanisms would you use, similar to what you would have introduced in your area?
Yeah, I think what's really important is to be on the ground and to be able to interact with people's daily lives, because that's where you really see the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So for me, I operate within various spaces, academically, legally, and traveling as an author and a global Fulbright. I always leave specifically the door open when it comes to the ability to contact. I think it's really important. Sometimes people just need a way to navigate. And if you're able to send them a specific person, let's say, you aspire to come to Florida International University. Sometimes people just need a contact to understand how to navigate that, because it's something totally new. It's foreign, so to speak. And it's helpful to have someone who is, in our case, similar in your culture, similar in your background. You feel a comfort level in the ability to talk to that person, maybe a letter of recommendation, those kinds of things. I really believe in having the ability to have the door open for communication.
Okay, and you have an upcoming Disney book, I Am Because We Are. Tell us a little bit about your experience being a Disney writer before we get into the book itself.
So I feel like drum roll, please, because this is the first time. I chose specifically to reveal the cover in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a big discussion with Disney as well. And when I wrote this book, it's due out this coming August in 2025. It's actually already available for pre-order. But when I wrote this book, did I know it was going to go into the hands of Disney and that level? I'll tell you kind of a little bit about the book business. The book business is pretty much hurry up and then wait. So that means you write something, you put it out there in the world. In my case, I'm represented by Full Circle Literary Agency, which is based out of San Diego, California. Amazing agent. But when you write a book and you put it in the hands, my relationship with my agent is very friendly. So she said to me, we're going to go for the top tier options. Okay. You've already established yourself. You've done this other book. You're doing a lot in the world right now. And I said, okay, go for it. Let's see what happens. And the response from several offers that we got for the book was really eye-opening. The Disney editor specifically, who's amazing, her name is Sylvie Frank. Hi, Sylvie. She said to me, and this is really what sat in my soul. She said, I would read this book to my child every night. And they haven't touched a word, which is kind of unheard of. It was not, there was no editing of the language of the original manuscript. And, you know, we're now bringing it to fruition next year. So I Am Because We Are is based on the Ubuntu philosophy, which is the African philosophy. Most people know Nelson Mandela for this philosophy. You know, I cannot sit at a table and eat a meal and be full if my neighbor is hungry. And I think that is what we come from. I think those are the roots of who we are.
Correct.
And maybe history has reorganized how we interact and how we take care of our neighbors.
Yes.
But for me, there's always a consciousness of how we take care and engage with each other, because it's so important. Kindness is free. It costs you nothing to give someone a smile. Absolutely nothing. It costs you nothing to give them a compliment. You know, and we have to think of so many ways, even the smallest steps, to bring community back.
All right. And just as we wrap up, because we are out of time, unfortunately. I noticed that the cover of your book has at the epicenter of it a young black girl, and around her are other representations of other ethnicities around the world. Was that something that was, you know, thought out? You know, what was the idea behind all of that in relation to what you just mentioned?
Well, I definitely had the vision, as well as the amazing illustrator, to make the book accessible and reflective of us all.
Yeah.
We are a tapestry of so many threads, and I think this book represents that.
All right.
As does Trinidad and Tobago.
Definitely.
All right. So just before you go, I want to just ask you to, you know, share your page if you have one. When the book does release, how we can get access to it, and even the current book that you have. How do we purchase? How do we get access to it?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I'd love to share my Instagram, and the book is available on Amazon pre-order. So that is all available on my website, AllisonMatulli.com.
All right. So I want to thank you, Miss Matulli, for coming here and gracing us with your laudable feats. You know, it's quite inspiring, and I hope, you know, young children and parents alike are inspired. You know, with all that you would have shared with us here this morning. Miss Lewis, any parting sentiments?
Well, definitely congratulations on everything that you have done so far. Being from Trinidad and Tobago, we are very, very proud of you. So congratulations again, and we wish you all the best in the future. Remember to support Miss Allison Matulli. Go to her website, AllisonMatulli.com. Purchase those books for your children, because it's very inspiring, and we are extremely proud of everything that you have done so far.
All right, so that is it, guys, for this segment. Just remember to share the life, share the life, share the life. We'll be right back.